Hi, alright, welcome. I'm Jamie. Thank you for taking the time to join me. On this channel, I share with you my knowledge and experience of baby loss, as well as what it's like to restart my journey to conceive. So on today's video, I'll be sharing with you what my diagnosis is, what it is, how I got diagnosed, what are the symptoms, what's the treatment, and what you need to know before considering to try and conceive again with this particular issue. So grab a cuppa and join me for a chat. So you've made it to the series, you've watched all my miscarriage stories, all the information, the questions, the myths. If you haven't, I will leave links to those in the cards up above. But my diagnosis is in. Check out my ebook, which is all about the 4 stages to healing. I'll leave a link in the description below. I have Antiphospholipid Syndrome. This is also known as APS, and I will be referring to it as APS because I promise you that I cannot say that word twice. I cannot. So after 3 miscarriages, seeing 3 different specialists, 7 months of waiting, I finally got my diagnosis. I had never heard of APS before. I had heard of Hughes syndrome or sticky blood. I had heard of this before, but I had not heard of the technical term for it. So it was explained to me that APS is really difficult to diagnose. I actually had to have 3 blood tests done, of the same blood test done, just to make sure that I actually had APS and that it wasn't something that I had picked up whilst in pregnancy. So I had to have the test repeated a few times before they made the conclusion that I did in fact have APS. APS is actually one of the main causes of recurrent miscarriage, but it is very difficult to diagnose. At least 15% of recurrent miscarriages happen because of APS, and it is now probably the most common reasons for recurrent miscarriage, but it's also treatable, which is good news. So with APS, your body will actually attack the proteins in your blood rather than bacteria and viruses as it's supposed to. So these antibodies, APS, attack the blood vessels and the blood. So the symptoms of APS, obviously the main one and the reason why I was diagnosed with it finally was because I'd had recurrent miscarriage. So I'd had 3 miscarriages in a row. I describe them as low grade symptoms, but for me, when they told me what I had and I did my research into what it was, that kind of like I had a light bulb moment, because it explained how I had felt for so long, and I have always had these symptoms. So the main one I've always had since I can remember is headaches and migraines. I also am very well known for my poor memory. So that is also a symptom of APS, as well as having dizziness, joint pain, fatigue, other cognitive problems, pins and needles. I am sitting here talking to you right now and I have pins and needles in my feet. I get them all the time for no reason. And all of those are symptoms of APS. Once you've been diagnosed with APS, there are a few things you need to consider before you try to conceive again. And the main one is a plan. You should have been referred to a specialist or be under specialist care anyway in order to get diagnosed with APS. You would have had to have been referred to the recurrent miscarriage clinic, and that's how you even ended up having a diagnosis of APS, because your local GP would not test or be able to test for APS either. So you have been diagnosed with APS and the treatment is usually warfarin. And if you're trying to conceive again, you will not be able to continue to take warfarin. Warfarin is a blood thinner. It's given to, I don't want to say those who have the most severe symptoms. So with APS, there is, because it causes blood clots, so there is a chance that you might be affected by a heart attack or a stroke, and then typically warfarin is prescribed to thin the blood to avoid that happening. If that's your circumstance, then you cannot take warfarin whilst you're pregnant. So your plan with your specialist, I'm assuming, will be to come off warfarin once you find out that you're pregnant, and start a different blood thinner, which is usually heparin injections every day whilst you're pregnant for the first 6 weeks, sometimes longer. I know in my case it will be for the first 12 weeks that I will have to inject myself daily. Along with the heparin injections daily, you will also have to take a low dose of aspirin, and all this is just to thin the blood and to avoid blood clot. It's essential that you start taking the heparin as soon as you are pregnant. So in my case, I already have the injections, and I know the day that I find out that I am pregnant, I have to start taking those heparin injections straight away with a low dose of aspirin. Unfortunately, having APS, you do have to have a plan in place. You do need to be aware if you've missed a period and take a pregnancy test and find out right away if you're pregnant. You want to make sure that your medication and your symptoms are all under control before you even think about trying to conceive. Not have any flare-ups of APS on a regular basis before you start trying to conceive again. Mothers with APS will automatically be considered to be high risk, which means you will come under specialist care once you find out that you're pregnant. Early scans, regular blood work will be done, and this is all part of being in the extra special club of APS warriors. For me, my employer has been with me throughout my 3 miscarriages. So once I finally got a diagnosis, I notified them immediately, and it actually explained a lot of the issues that I had previously. They were really supportive, and I hope that your employer is as good as mine, and you can go to them and tell them that you have APS and how it affects you. And if there needs to be some changes made to your work or how you work, I hope that you have an employer who is understanding enough to give you that leeway. I used to have migraines very often, and it really used to make my job a struggle, especially if my migraines would last 2 or 3 days at a time. So my employer always was checking on how I am because they were aware that I suffered with migraines. I thankfully, because I'm on blood thinners, don't have migraines that often, but that really used to cause me a lot of issues in my job. I think it's really important to inform loved ones you have APS. There are going to be times when you're having an APS flare-up and you can't do much. You will find that you are very tired some days, and you feel like you've completely had the wind knocked out of you, and you really can't do much that day. So maybe you've made plans with a family member or a friend, and you wake up and you're just drained, like you're completely fatigued, you can't do anything, and you just feel like you want to sleep the whole day away. That is not laziness. That is an APS flare-up. You want your family or friends to have a little bit of compassion and understanding. If you're in the middle of a migraine and it's like day 3 or 4 into your migraine, and you don't want to talk to anyone, you just want to hide in a dark room for the next couple of days until your migraine dies down, like, you want your family to understand and know what's going on with you. So tell them that you have APS flaring up, you've got a migraine, and it could last a few days, you're not up for it. I'm sure at least they can have a little bit of compassion and understanding if they know that that's what you're going through. and there's nothing that you can do about APS or even the symptoms that come with it. Sometimes you just have to ride it out. Communication is key. Don't be ashamed to say that you're not having a good day and you just want to have some R&R, just some relaxation to get yourself back on track. With APS, you always need to sort of manage how much you try to do. So I'll have days when I'm full of beans and I've got loads of energy and I can get 3, 4, 5, 6 tasks done in a day. I'm up and down, I'm out all day. And then I have days where I need a nap. Today was actually like that. I had a headache. I had to have a nap to clear that headache and I just needed to rest. I was doing too much. I've been doing too much. And yeah, you have to manage how much you can try and do in a day. You can't do it all. You do need to pace yourself. You do need to plan your day and how you're going to do things. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to complete tasks. It's okay if you only get 1 or 2 things done in a day. You don't have to complete like this list of things all day, every day. How are you feeling today? Let me know in the comments below. If you've made it this far in the video, why not hit the subscribe button? It really helps out my channel, and give this video a thumbs up. As always, leave me an orange heart if you've been affected or know someone who's been affected by a baby.